everyone, welcome to our next WOW series interview. Today we're sitting down with Sandra Moerch of SAP, and she heads corporate social responsibility. She's the chief content director, and she has a lot of great advice and stories to share with us today. We got connected back when I first started what was not the WOW series, but was my event planning company, the AG Collective, and she really does practice what she preaches. She has been a huge champion and sponsor of mine from the very beginning, and she really means it when she says that she is advancing women and equality in the workplace and outside of the workplace. And she is also going to be speaking at our upcoming event in celebration of 2021's International Women's Day, so we'll provide more information in that below. And without further ado, Sandra, I would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us more about what you're up to in the corporate world and outside of the corporate world.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Abby, for having me. You just blew my socks off when I first met you in this incredible event space underneath Lululemon on Union Square. It was just the coolest venue ever. And I was just like, who is this cool gal who is organizing all of this and bringing together all these amazing people? So really appreciate you also being a champion of mine and bringing me into your community. It's such an honor to be here and to be a partner of yours and a friend of yours. And I guess I'll dive into my intro. My name is Sandra Moerch, and I work for SAP for the past 6 years. It was actually the first company that I joined after I graduated from college, and then it's just been a whirlwind of experiences that has led me from that initial career experience in Silicon Valley to all around the world to where I am right now, which is actually in Hawaii of all places due to the pandemic, where my role at SAP is Chief Content Director for our Purpose and Sustainability Marketing Group. And in that role, I have the privilege to work with creatives, so writers, graphic designers, videographers, and social media managers to really craft meaningful and impactful messages on behalf of our organization in the market of what we're doing and what we're up to when it comes to sustainability and purpose-related work. So I feel very blessed to be in this intersection where I get to interact with CSR, sustainability, D&I on a day-to-day basis, and really help them bring their external messages to market. And yeah, that's what I do in my corporate life. And then in my personal life, I'm a chief mommy officer, Skyler, my 1-year-old, and he's quickly become my secondary work, or not secondary as in prioritization, but my work next to work. And then on top of that, I'm the founder of a project called the Feminist Portfolio, which is an art project that is really set to document feminist historic female role models of our time. And we do that through these beautiful portrait art pieces that we exhibit also around the world, most recently at Art Basel in 2019, December, so right before everything closed down. Was also about to embark on an exhibition with you, Abby, in May last year, but obviously things changed, and we haven't quite gotten to that point yet where we can host large-scale exhibitions with lots of people, but hopefully it's coming soon.
Yes, hopefully. I know, I was so excited for that event, but it just hasn't happened yet. It will happen. So it's obviously a no-brainer why Sandra's an incredible speaker for the WOW series community. What I really love about the work that she's doing and what you're doing, Sandra, is that I'm all about breaking the idea that you can only be one thing in your career, like you can only be a corporate professional, or you can only be an entrepreneur, or you can't do both, but you really have proven that you can do that, and of course be a mom on top of it. But what I love most is that you're doing everything with purpose. It's not all about like the money or the most innovative. Of course it's about innovative products, but it's not about being like the cool and most fashionable thing, but it's how can we of course be cool and relevant, but how can we also start organizations and passion projects of ours that are rooted in purpose? Because I think there are so many young women and men out there who want that in their careers, but they feel kind of pulled into the corporate world, especially, the hustle and bustle of Manhattan, especially in your early 20s, you're working super late hours in the office, and it can be hard to kind of connect your passions and your desire to maybe give back or find purpose. So I know we're going to be talking about this at our event, but I would love to hear, a peek of how you kind of navigated that process journey.
I love that that's such a passion topic of yours, because it's definitely one that I share. I always encourage my team to have something outside of work. It actually helps them become more inspired and productive when they enter the corporate role, right, that they have on the sidelines, or not on the sidelines, their core job essentially. But and there's a number of examples that I just want to highlight. I have a person in my team who runs an NGO committed to changing the traveling industry and traveling with purpose, and her name is Anina with The World Within Us, so check her out somewhere. Maybe we can link to her. And another colleague of mine, he has his own board game company, and they just launched last year on Kickstarter and were able to raise the funds that they needed to actually get that off the ground. And now we always joke about, I always used to say Hasbro will probably come and acquire you soon, and he's like, no, we will acquire Hasbro. So there are just so many amazing projects that people are working on outside of work, whether they be purpose driven or whether they be self-fulfilling, right, to make you feel more whole at work. It's just so important that we give the space for people to grow like that.
Absolutely. And that's so important. I found when I didn't want to leave corporate America per se. I just wanted to find an employer that really aligns with more of our missions, and that there's more to life than work, or how can you align your passions with work? And I could not agree more that you bring more to your corporate job when you have something outside of it that you're continually learning and like flexing that entrepreneurial muscle with. But it was really hard to find an employer that supported me doing something outside of the office, So I think it's so important, and it's such an example to other companies and other corporate leaders to, actually encourage this activism and entrepreneurship among your employees, and especially the next generation of professionals. And I think that, I'm really excited to talk about that, especially next Wednesday, because there are so many corporations and managers who can learn from you. And I think it's just a matter of thinking differently than how we've thought previously in terms of what our life and careers and all of that can be. And I want to touch on too, because we talked about this before, and I think it's important to highlight a little bit about the sustainable development goals that you work with and how your team is working with those goals. I think a lot of people know, or they see the graphics, but they might be like, wait, so what does this do, or how do I work with them, or what is it? I'd love to hear a little bit more about your role and SAP's role with those.
Of course, and I love that you bring that up because there's so much more to the Sustainable Development Goals than just the colorful squares with nice graphics on them. Each and every one of those 17 goals represent a target that we're trying to reach by 2030. So whether that is achieving gender equality across the board, or it's achieving climate and circular economy targets, those are all part of that framework. And what SAP did back in 2015 was that our CEO at that time, Bill McDermott, and Angela Merkel, who was the Chancellor of Germany, is about to unfortunately leave in that role. She's been so amazing. But they went to the United Nations and committed a bill on behalf of SAP, which is a German company. That's why he was with Angela, and Angela on behalf of Germany. We're going to take these goals really seriously. We're going to implement them and adopt them into our core strategy of how we run our country and company. So that's where it all began when the SDG framework was launched in 2015. And then our team was brought in 2016 to really operationalize those goals, right? What does that mean for our company? How do we educate our entire workforce on, what they are and how they can bring them to work, and how they can put their work towards the actions that help us achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. And one highlight that I just wanted to announce now that, you gave me the opportunity. Today, SAP just announced that we're going to go carbon neutral by 2023. Our original goal was 2025, but we've been able to accelerate the progress because of, the large scale education across the organization, but also just action and execution on programs that help us get to the targets that we need to get to. So we are almost carbon neutral in a couple of years, and yeah, that's just a small announcement out of many, but it just happened today, so I thought I'd bring it up.
Of course, that is incredible. And I think there's also, especially in today's environment, especially, I've seen this with the community and the WOW series community, there's a lack of trust with sometimes these bigger corporations and what you're doing and how we can facilitate and bring to life corporations that truly are trying to make the world a better place. Is so important, and the way SAP is doing that is such a leader and example, and you are of course a spearheader in that, which is incredible. And I also think it's important to share too that you don't have to be a big corporation like SAP to work for the Sustainable Development Goals or to align with them. Like, we're aligned with the goal of gender equality, and that was I had that planned out before I had the WOW series planned out. I just picked a goal and was like, which one can I relate to the most? Do I feel like I can change? Do I feel like I can impact? And that's how, it's rooted in the work that we're doing. So incredible education, Sandra, thank you so much. And I hope that everyone watching here too learned a little bit more about SAP's work and the work with the Sustainable Development Goals. And feel free to check them out if you have not yet. So let's get into, Sandra, back to your story and your story and role in the workplace. So I'd love to hear about a challenge related to your gender, identity, whatever it might be that you've had to overcome in the workplace. And I'm sure those watching will identify with what you have to say as well.
Thank you, Abby. Yeah, I know we also discussed this question a lot because there's been so many different scenarios where, the challenge has been gender-based. But I would say the one that's most recent is when I went out on maternity leave last year. Actually, it was late 2019. Yeah. Right in the middle of my maternity leave, or actually in the very beginning, I think Skyler was a week old. My company had a huge restructure and reorganization, which meant that my manager was no longer my manager, and I was in a completely new setup. Thankfully, I still had some of my old colleagues, so I had a little bit of sense of, a little bit of sense of, what was going on. But I felt almost forced back into work prematurely because of all those changes happening. Because if I didn't go back to work, I would not have a say in where I was going to land in that whole restructure. So I ended up going back to work only a couple of weeks after Skyler was born. It's something that I still regret to this day, because I feel like no one should be put in that situation that they have to choose between their career and motherhood, especially right in the beginning. And it's something that I've brought up with HR multiple times following the whole experience, because I just don't want it to ever happen to anyone else. And obviously, when you work in a big organization, a big corporate company, restructures and reorganizations happen, but it's also our responsibility, especially on the HR side, that we build our systems in a way so people are not put at risk just because they're out on leave, whether it be on maternity leave or medical leave or whatever it may be, right? I think that we owe that to our employees, that they have some kind of control still, even though they're on leave, which they're rightfully on leave, right? And there's a reason why you have to spend that time very early on with your children, and there's a lot of bonding going on. And thankfully, COVID was just starting to become a thing, and not thankfully for that, but thankfully we were able to work from home, so that provided some flexibility. And my new manager was in a different location, so I was able to do most of the work from home, but it still meant that I had to be absent for many hours during the day of my early motherhood. And it's I'm trying to make up for it now, but I it's one of those decisions that I'm always going to regret how I handled it. So hopefully my experience can also help either aspiring moms, or soon to be moms, or moms who are going for their second child, to think about this if this ever happened to them.
Exactly. I think that's so important. And what I love about what you did, and it's always a learning experience. And that's why we have these conversations and we talk with different women to show like not everyone does it right. And we all wish that we could have done things differently in the workplace, especially as women handling difficult conversations. We've all been there, and motherhood and maternity leave, this is 100% a common theme that we've all heard and seen. And what I love about your story and kind of what other people watching can take away is the importance of raising awareness when it does happen, and it can be really uncomfortable. And I think we're oftentimes so concerned, like, I can't say anything because what if I lose my job, or I'm not going to say anything because change isn't going to happen anyway. But I like that you said that you've raised it multiple times with HR, and all you can do is do what you can to help raise awareness, and so it doesn't happen again. And yeah, so I'm so sorry you had to go through that, and it's such a shame that we're still having these struggles and conversations, but I really believe that at least awareness and just hearing someone's story like yours at least will open up the minds of others to maybe make change in their corporations, or at least just learn, right? Yes. And at least you have had the flexible working environment, which has helped to make up for more of that time. But I know we've had a couple other WOW speakers and upcoming WOW speakers who share very similar stories and have actually started initiatives to solve for that problem. So on that note, I would love to hear your advice, either related to this or just in general for the next generation, of women. You know, what's something that you wish you would have known or heard at this time in your life, or even earlier?
So first of all, like, get engaged with this community, right? The WOW Women is just an incredible community to network with and to become part of. And it's also a very intimate community, which is really hard to find nowadays because, you know, they quickly blow up and they scale, and then it's really hard to keep that personal relationship with your, you know, with the people in your community. And this organization has not done that, right? You guys are so true to your values of having that personal connection with your members. So definitely find your tribes. This is definitely one of the ones that I recommend for new moms and for aspiring moms, and also for people who just want to empathize with moms. I recommend Hey Mama. It's an organization that SAP actually recently partnered with, and I've been following them for years, ever since they started. And they just do some really innovative content around, you know, how to juggle and balance your career and motherhood. And then, you know, there's other organizations that I could highlight as well, but the list goes on. But here, because it's International Women's Day in a little bit, I would definitely encourage everyone to go to internationalwomensday.org or .com. I can't remember it, but it's a really, really great resource that actually also shares a lot of historical context of, you know, why are we here today on International Women's Day, and why are we, you know, why are we celebrating our progress, and why we're also reminding the world that there's still some way to go. So definitely recommend that as a resource. And then lastly, the female quotient is a big partner of ours and has been for many years. And they also sit on an incredible corporate and NGO network of companies and organizations dedicated to creating equality. So those are some of the resources I would point people towards. And just in finding your own voice and figuring out your own path, just know that things are always changing, and you can write as many letters to yourself about where you want to be in 5 or 10 years, but no one can predict COVID, right? And no one can predict all these ambiguous situations that we might find ourselves in. So just getting comfortable with change and getting comfortable with the uncomfortable, that has been a real lifeline to me, and a really good advice that I got early on in my career by one of my first managers, who made me feel really, really comfortable about change because she ate change for breakfast herself. So I was just like, okay, I'm ready for change any minute.
That's so important. Just being open to the unknown can really change your career and how you see change.
Yes. And just, you know, there's always a reason. So just lean in and have faith in, you know, sometimes there's also other forces outside of your own control span that's guiding you towards where you're landing. So always listen to those little things and little
exactly. Listen to what's kind of pulling you, or the direction that life is taking you, even if it doesn't make sense, or it's frustrating, or it's unclear. And I think most importantly, what you said, uncomfortable. But I found too, you know, everything that I thought was bad or it didn't work out for me, you always see how it works out once you've gone through it for the better. Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yes, please, of course, join the WOW series conversations and community. As Sandra said, we are so like curated and authentic in the people that we're bringing together. The Female Quotient is also such an incredible organization as well. And they are such leaders in the space. So thank you so much, Sandra, for sitting down with us today and have you stay within our community. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you so much, Abby. And thanks to everyone out there who listened.